What it do, my Elvis fans? We are back today with another one of Ashley's adventures. And I saw the title and I was interested. Who's Gary Pepper? It's called Elvis and Gary Pepper. And our wonderful Ashley's going to tell us all about it. Appreciate y'all. Remember, her link to her channel will be in my description. So make sure you subscribe to her channel with notification bells on so you don't miss not one of her videos. And honestly, I think she puts up a video like almost every day or every other day at 8 o'clock at night. So stay tuned to her. Trust me. Let's just get right into it. Yeehaw! Ashley's Adventures through time.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another video, another Gary Pepper video. Let's dive in. This is my 6th video about Gary. This one will be more of a compilation of things that I've discovered about Gary or his friendship with Elvis in no particular order, so I'm going to make it chronological. Sometimes interesting things pop up and I've been compiling them for some time. So if you don't know about Gary Pepper, I will give you a little bit of a backstory before we dive into more facets of his life. Gary Pepper was born on May 14th, 1931 in Memphis. He was intelligent and a driven go-getter, despite having cerebral palsy. He became an Elvis fan immediately after first hearing him on the radio. Gary was actually one of the first gate fans, but from way back at the gates of Elvis's house on Audubon.
This is like, where you get these pictures at, Ashley? Like, these are amazing pictures, and I love pictures. I'm a picture dude. I love pictures. But great job.
Drive. Gary and his mom would hang out with other fans outside the house of this local celebrity, where Gladys Presley befriended them. So Gladys proudly collected news about her son, and knowing this, Gary created a scrapbook of newspaper clippings for her. This is how Gary was introduced to Elvis, and they remained in each other's lives until Elvis's passing. And if you want to learn more about who he was and his friendship with Elvis, I recommend my main video about Gary here. Something that I was surprised to learn about Gary's early life is the fact that he moved around so many times within his first 10 years. I was able to find his parents in the census and city directories for most of that decade, but for whatever reason, the family moved at least 8 times before settling in their little house on East.
I love how the length she goes to get her history. She goes all out just to get her facts, yo. It's freaking awesome. Like, gotta appreciate that. Remember, subscribe to her channel, notification bells on, guys. Don't forget.
East Street in 1941, where Gary lived well into his 40s. This is the address that was printed on the original Tankers material as the fan club headquarters.
Gary Pepper, 793.
Gary's cousin sent me this video clip of Gary in the 1950s, and it's cool to see him so young. He's with his family just hanging out.
It's freaking awesome.
This next video I want to show you blew my mind. I'd never seen a video of Gary during Elvis's lifetime, let alone together, and had no idea this occasion was filmed. This was posted by Sarah, who goes by Walking in Memphis on Instagram. On March 7th, 1960, Elvis arrived back in Memphis after serving in the Army. Fans are there to see his homecoming, and Elvis greets the many fans there at the train station.
There he is right there.
Who is there with a huge sign of Gary Pepper.
That's
Elvis
awesome.
leans down to hug Gary, and Gary actually apologizes that there aren't more fans there. It was 7:45 a.m. on a school day. Elvis fan, collector, and friend to Elvis, Jimmy Velvet, was also an avid photographer. He took photos of music history from the 1950s to today and published them in his book, Inside the Dream. Here are some amazing photos by Jimmy that were included in his book. Gary inside Minnie Mae's downstairs bedroom at Graceland, as well as Gary and his mom at Vernon Presley's party. Both of these are from the 1960s. Gary himself had some great photos too. So Gary ran the Elvis Tankers fan club and sent the fans newsletters. These newsletters are a wealth of information and let fans in on what Elvis was up to and included photos from Gary's visits. Gary had limited use of his hands, so his photos were taken by his mom. Here's Vernon Presley looking really sharp on the porch of Graceland in the early 1960s.
Looking sharp.
Gary and his family were invited to Graceland for a family party. Here's Gary and his parents in a 1968 issue for Strictly Elvis magazine, surrounded by Gary's ever-growing Elvis collection. Wow. At the time that they attended the party, Gary's dad, Sterling, had just been laid off from his job at Memphis Steam Laundry, where he had worked for years. Elvis immediately put him on the payroll as a gate guard. But they didn't really need another gate guard, so he was more the relief if the others couldn't work.
Okay.
Well, suddenly, Mr. Pepper was working a lot.
Elvis had such a kind heart, man. You gotta respect that. Like, no matter the color, too. So for everybody out there who thinks, he was racist, I don't want to hear that. No matter the color, he helped anybody out.
while the other guards were out sick. This is what Gary's nurse Nancy told me in an interview I did with her, and if you're interested in hearing all the things that we talked about, you can check it out in the
Truth about
link
Gary
right here.
Pepper. Oh,
I'm not
we
sure
will.
exactly
We
how
will,
long
Ashley.
Mr. Pepper worked at the gate.
We will.
He was captured in some really cool pictures. This is a family photo sent to me by Chris Pipkins, who is the toddler in the photo. It was
That's
April
awesome.
1968, and seated right in the center is Gary's dad.
Just for her to have
Fans
ties
came
with
to
somebody
visit.
like that. You know what I mean?
Then
That's amazing.
there's this one, where Priscilla is driving through the gate the following month. She looks so cool, and she stopped to
Look at the
interact
security
with
guard,
fans.
yo. He's like,
I
yeah,
want to point out the
I'm
back.
watching.
There's Mr. Pepper inside the doorway of the original guard shack, which was white and pretty small.
Also,
Now, we
that's
have to
Mr.
talk
Pepper
about
right
something
there.
pretty
Okay,
dark.
guarding.
On July 23rd, 1970, Mr. Pepper was at work one morning inside the guard shack when unfortunately he passed away. He was 68 years old.
What?
This happened in that original white
Damn. Rest in peace, Mr. Pepper, yo. Damn, that's sad. Wow.
guardhouse. And I'm not positive, but I'm thinking that maybe the new guard shack was built because of this. Here's the stone wall in front of Elvis Presley Boulevard with the brick guard shack just behind it.
Okay.
It's a bit taller and visible above the wall. Here's the brick portion of the wall just to the right of the famous gates, where we can clearly see the guard shack just behind it. I actually came across a home movie taken by a fan in June of 1970. That's 1 month prior to Mr. Pepper's death.
Wow.
And here is a still from it, taken from the same spot.
Excuse me.
The brick guardhouse isn't there. If
Ooh,
you guys
excuse
have
me.
any
Too
information
early
on
for that
exactly
shit.
when the brick guardhouse was built or have any photos of its construction, please send it my way. Okay, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll discuss Gary's house next to
I'm making this quick video because it has been 1 month
You know how
since
I go,
joining
ads,
the Cash
you
Flow
know, I'm
101
too cheap,
system,
you know.
and so
Graceland. Unfortunately, Mr. Pepper's death changed things for the worse for Gary and his mom. Gary's mom was his primary caregiver.
Oh, and the
when
movie
her
set
husband
Flaming
died,
Star?
she suffered a mental break that she never recovered
awesome.
from. Gary and his mom were in a
Gary
dire
went
situation,
everywhere with Elvis,
and
huh?
it was Elvis that stepped in to help. Elvis arranged for an associate to oversee that Gary gets a caregiver, which ultimately led to him meeting nurse Nancy, who eventually moved in with him in his little house on Eva Street. Now, we've covered this before, but I want to share this again because I see this myth repeated a lot. In 1976, Nancy and Gary moved to a bigger house on Dolan Drive. Elvis did not buy this house. It's easy to assume because it's right next door to Vernon Presley, but Nancy told me the story
okay.
when I spoke with her.
Got you.
The house came up for sale. They needed more space, so her and her mom bought it together.
I got
I was
you.
able to pull up the actual deed to 1288 Dolan Drive, dated October 1976, with Nancy and her mom's names on it. I highlighted that info.
Ashley, I love how you're so committed to this. You are very committed to all this stuff, and I praise you. You know, you get a bow down to Ashley. You know what I mean? It's amazing.
So you could see it. Again, Elvis did not buy Gary a house, though I've seen it printed in so many places. I discussed this with Nancy, and her response was simple.
See, she spits
Elvis
straight
didn't buy Gary a
facts.
house because he already had a house. Elvis had been there and seen it. Here's a photo from inside Gary's home on Dolan Drive, possibly being interviewed after Elvis died.
Dude, look at all
That's
the
Nancy on the
memorabilia
right.
he has of
I want to
Elvis.
point out the framed
Talk
record
about
on the
fanatic.
wall above her.
You're a real fan.
It's Elvis's last album, Moody Blue, and the plaque
Moody
says,
Blue.
Special Presentation to Gary Pepper.
Oh,
This
look
was
at
one of
that.
the items that was in the Gary Pepper auction in 2009.
Elvis so genuine.
I know we're kind of skipping around a lot, but next I want to read part of an email that Nancy sent me. These kinds of stories aren't in any books, but they really paint the picture about who Elvis was. In it, she's talking about a fan named Betty from Louisiana who stayed at her and Gary's house temporarily after Elvis died. Nancy says her husband was an Army officer when Elvis was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. Their son was 5 years old and loved Elvis. Her husband took him to meet Elvis, and he wore a little Army uniform. Elvis was very kind and spent time with him. Years later, her son fought in Vietnam and came home suffering from PTSD, severe depression, and was suicidal.
It's real.
Betty wrote to Elvis, not expecting him to even get her letter. She was surprised when Elvis sent her son a large package of autographed pictures and a letter. This act of kindness by Elvis was pivotal in saving and turning his life around. Much of Gary's adult life revolved around Elvis. He was a devoted fan and close
Got an
friend of his for
RCA
over
Victor
20
bag.
years,
Wonder what's in
spanning
that
Elvis's
bag.
entire career. Gary died on March 29,
Wow.
1980, less than 3 years after Elvis did.
1980.
He spent his remaining
Wow.
years in Long Beach near his relatives, but there was a notice of his passing in a Memphis newspaper. He's buried in a cemetery in Whiteville, Tennessee, an hour from his last home in Memphis, and shares a plot with his parents. I visited Gary's final resting
Keep it in
place
family,
and was happy
you know?
to learn that he's in an area with tons
Stay
of
loyal
other
to
peppers
each
going
other.
back
Be
generations.
buried together.
If you want to check out that video, you can click here, and there will also be a link below. And that is it. I've created several other videos about Gary.
Shout out to
The links are in the
Ashley.
description box below. As always, thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.
Peace, Ashley. Appreciate you. I mean, guys, she's so knowledgeable. Like, her knowledge is impeccable. It's crazy. You gotta respect that. You know, we're learning even more. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you who are new, you know, to Elvis too, you know, you can learn from her. So subscribe to her channel. Her link will be in my description. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.